Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another quickie episode of IO Radio. This is where myself, Adam Smith, aka American Scream, and my associate, Sal Bayat, discuss all things tech. These days, we're kind of focusing a little bit on cryptocurrency because it's in our critical wheelhouse and there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So, hello, everybody.
Hi, guys.
So, we called an emergency podcast because there's something very interesting happening in the world of Bitcoin right now. There was a recent update to the core code that added some additional features and functionality that some people have now figured out a way to exploit to add an extra feature into the blockchain that wasn't there a while ago. And this feature has the possibility of creating quite possibly a major shitstorm, or it could be a huge boon for Bitcoin. It remains to be seen. There's a lot of debate and discussion about that. So what is that? It's something called ordinals and inscriptions. And let me explain what that is for people that don't know. A recent update allowed something called ordinals, and that's the ability to serialize individual units of Bitcoin. The smallest unit of Bitcoin is called a satoshi. That's 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. And this recent update allowed you to store information that would be associated with a transaction of an individual Satoshi. So kind of bringing NFT-like functionality, which was previously on other blockchains like Ethereum that had smart contracts, onto Bitcoin. So you could take a piece of data, tag it with a unique identifier, and it would follow around with that identifier. So every Satoshi that has been minted apparently has an ordinal, a unique number associated with it that's probably formulaically derived based on, the very first Bitcoin is Satoshis 1 through 100 million. So they've basically serialized it. It's like the equivalent of putting serial numbers on fiat money, but now they've done it with Bitcoin. So what does this mean for the market? Well, there's an interesting side effect of the ability to inject data and associate it with a transaction. They've allowed what appears to be maybe close to about 400K of data to be associated with a particular transaction or Satoshi. This basically creates an immutable piece of data that can be stored on the blockchain, which is different from NFTs on Ethereum, where they only stored a receipt or a URL that pointed to an existing site. In this case, people now can store actual images and other kinds of content directly into the blockchain. There's a lot of controversy about this because obviously it opens up a huge can of worms. As part of this idea of creating these ordinals, there's at least one entity out there that's running a website called Inscription.com, which is, I don't know if they're the ones that came up with this or this is now kind of bandying around the industry, where these ordinal values are being gamified so that they're actually breaking them down like a collectible card game where you have common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and mythic. And it basically means, depending upon the ordinal value associated with a Satoshi, whether it's the first one in a block or a cycle or whatever, is considered arbitrarily special or rare. It's just, they just pulled it out of nowhere. But it's interesting that they're going to try to pass this off as something that is collectible, whereas one ordinal associated with a Satoshi could theoretically be more valuable than another. I would equate it to, say, serial numbers on money. If you want to say a serial number with 5 fives in it is worth more than one that doesn't, that's the weirdness that we're starting to see, this gamification of this feature. But where the real magic happens is something called inscriptions. Inscriptions are taking advantage of this ability to put data into the blockchain, but instead of it just being an ordinal number, you can put content, images, graphics, GIFs, audio, whatever will fit within the size of the thing. And that's pretty interesting. There's some software that people are developing where you can inject the your content right into the blockchain. Now, there's going to be a transaction fee associated with it, and the bigger the transaction size, the larger the fee. I understand right now it's about $20 to stick something onto blockchain, but you can create your own content and put it on the blockchain. Now, let's take a look at what examples of that content. Here are some of the early examples of content that people have just been sticking. These are actual images that are on the blockchain. Of course, given the seriousness of obviously this industry, you can tell that this is a very serious deal here.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things to point out is that this ordinal scheme is entirely arbitrary. It's like an accounting scheme. So it doesn't require any updates to the Bitcoin core code. It's just something, it's a protocol, a way of doing things that has been enabled by the functionality in Taproot.
Mm-hmm. Taproot being this recent update, which apparently happened in 2021, November 2021. It's been around for a while.
That's right. It's been around for, over, what is that, almost 2 years? Well, actually, no, that would be 2020. Yeah, over 2 years. It's been around for over 2 years. And now we're finally starting to see people uploading images and media to Bitcoin.
Yep. And this has a lot of potential to create a huge, huge mess.
Well,
Because
let's think about.
and there's a lot of there's a lot of speculation about what is this good for Bitcoin? Is it bad for Bitcoin? Is it going to make the price go up? Is it going to make the price go down?
I mean, let's just think about malicious content here for a second. Not only do we have spam or advertising, we have porn, exploitative material like child pornography. There's all this stuff now that's going to get dumped on the Bitcoin blockchain. And what happens when it's stored there immutably forever?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, since it's a decentralized system, there's no authority. Anybody, once they get the right software and have a little bit of satoshis to pay the transaction fee, can theoretically dump content onto the blockchain. And of course, the blockchain is, as people claim, it's forever.
So where is this going to go? What's going to happen here? Do you think that people are going to like this functionality? Clearly, people are using it. There's what, maybe a few hundred of these ordinals that have been uploaded already. But eventually there is a group of people that really don't like this functionality. Will we see a fork?
This is happening right now in real time. What you see here are the most recent inscriptions that are being made. And they're doing these pepes, like collectible card things and cute little graphics and stuff like that. But it seems like it's just a matter of time. And Sal originally pointed this out to me, which makes perfect sense. It's just a matter of time before this turns into advertising. I mean, if you think about it, for $20 to throw something permanently up on the blockchain, I mean, how long before all of these are ads for Cialis and Coca-Cola or whatever?
I think they're going to be ads. They're all going to be ads for the crypto critical podcasts that are out there.
Anybody remember that? What was that Reddit board that the Pixel thing, where everybody was battling to take control of pixels on Reddit?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
This is some similar, but it's done on blockchain. Although you're not overwriting anybody, it's all appending. So it's just a constant barrage of additional crap. It's going to be crazy.
What's interesting is to think about how this changes the economics of mining. Are there miners that are going to prefer this model where people are paying to put something on the blockchain? Right now, miners are getting a subsidy, they're getting that block reward, and then they're trying to sell it. But there's a limited amount of liquidity available in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And a lot of miners are going bankrupt or having issues with their finances. Presumably, if everyone wants to upload images or video to the blockchain, to Bitcoin, they're going to be generating a lot of revenue with transaction fees.
Yeah, so this should definitely be a boon to miners. I also think it's going to be a boon to all of the people that get in early and hoodwink people thinking this is going to be the next big thing, just like what happened with NFTs. Some people got in early. We contend the vast majority of all the transactions were wash trading and fraudulent, but some people bought in thinking it was really going to go up and then lost their butt. I see something similar happening here. In this case, we've got Bitcoin copying the little boom Ethereum had with NFTs. But since this is on the blockchain, it's a little bit more dangerous.
Well, it's interesting because maybe that NFT craze has fizzled out and people are a bit wiser now. They're not uploading these things so that they can, I mean, maybe some people are going to try to sell them for $40,000, but I suspect the main use cases are just going to be regular people that want to host something on the blockchain, have an image up there. I wonder if it'll be more organic or more useful. This will actually be a more useful application of the Bitcoin blockchain.
That's all in context of Bitcoin, which nobody's really been able to find any legit use case for it in the first place. So it's all within that weird context. I mean, if you need to store data permanently somewhere, there's much better options than dumping it on the blockchain and having it buried in these gigabytes of data that need a special software to extract. So it's just another
Yeah.
weird thing. But of course, I guarantee you, people in the crypto industry are going to think this is really great. And it can be spun either way. It can be spun as this is a disaster. There's going to be pornography and there's going to be racist images and there's going to be all kinds of crazy stuff. Or other people are going to be like, this is a use case for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that there are many better ways of storing data if you need to. In terms of the cost, I mean, we've been hearing things like what, $20 of transaction fees in order to post an image. I can store a terabyte of data online for $5 a month.
Right.
Never mind 400K.
It'd be interesting to see. We're going to be watching this very closely. There's probably going to be some additional reports. And do you have any predictions of what you think is going to happen here, Sal?
Well, when you say prediction, it makes me think what's going to happen to the price of Bitcoin. Does it go up or does it go down?
What do you think?
And I think potentially any blockchain that's dominated by this functionality, the cost goes down, the price of Bitcoin goes down, because there's nobody that's looking for a greater fool anymore. If all you want to do is get a single Satoshi, and let's remember there are 100 million Satoshis in every Bitcoin. If all you need is a single Satoshi and you pay $20 and you have your image posted to the blockchain, I mean, I'm not going around and trying to get a Bitcoin to sell to somebody else. So I suspect this may drive down the cost of Bitcoin. Certainly if there's a fork and one blockchain ends up being ordinal Bitcoin and another one ends up being, pure Bitcoin or traditional Bitcoin, I think the ordinal Bitcoin is going to be worth much less.
So you think that eventually this will have to be stopped and they will fork Bitcoin and put an end to this?
Well, I think there's a big,
because you were talking about price and then you talked about forking. So I'm just trying to follow.
Yeah. So I think it depends. I suspect that this makes it less useful for people that want to speculate on Bitcoin.
Okay.
I mean, it's so manipulated.
I would say this is still Bitcoin
the
speculation, right? But instead of speculating on one Bitcoin, you're speculating on one Satoshi. And now you've got Satoshis that arbitrarily have different rarities. So it's like a scheme to add more value to individual parts of Bitcoin.
Well,
you think that's going to turn people off, is what you're saying?
Let's think about the economic incentives that are present in Bitcoin for a second.
Well, this greater fool theory is just one of 1,000 different things that people will say is part of the economics of Bitcoin.
Well, right now what you do is you spend money and you acquire Bitcoin and you hope that somebody else buys it from you for more in the future.
No. That's one school of thought. But the main school of thought would be you buy Bitcoin, you hold it, and eventually everybody stops accepting fiat and they just accept Bitcoin. And now you're just, the world runs on Bitcoin. It doesn't matter about selling.
Either way, it's an investment. It's just a question of your time horizon there. Mm-hmm. But either way, in that case, it's an investment. This is fundamentally different. This is a system where you are getting utility for your money. Now, it may be really shitty in terms of the utility. There might be systems that do a far better job that are centralized, but it is still an economic transaction where you have something done, you have some data, you want it stored on the blockchain, and you pay based on what that's worth to you. Mm-hmm. And so you might be willing to spend $20 on that. You're certainly not going to spend probably $20,000 to store something on the blockchain.
So you think it's going to make the price of Bitcoin go down because I guess people don't really want to do this, don't want to spend much money to do this, or don't need to?
Yeah, it changes the economics. If this is the primary use case for Bitcoin, if this becomes the overriding use case, then this is a different ball game. And in that scenario, now I think the price goes to zero either way. I think that in the current iteration of Bitcoin, it's worth nothing. But in this iteration, there is clearly some utility that's being exchanged. So there would actually be some use value.
And you're just saying that people would have a hard time justifying a higher price for it. I would say it's the other way around. I would say the more demand there is to dump stuff onto the blockchain, the higher the price of Bitcoin and the transactions are going to go. Well, I don't know about the price of Bitcoin because the price of Bitcoin is often set by the exchanges, not even by what's happening on blockchain. So that's a whole separate argument. But I think what's more important is this going to drive more demand on chain? And I think it will. Is that a good thing? Are the miners going to like it? Are the Bitcoin maxis going to like it? I guess time is going to tell. I think that everybody is worried that there's going to be some inappropriate content put on here, and they're going to say, and this is going to cause a problem because if the blockchain is immutable and you put something up there that is illegal, what happens to the blockchain?
Yeah, and don't you then need a centralized entity that's censoring or choosing what can be written and what can't?
Yeah, I mean that's one solution to the problem is to start censoring the blockchain. And I've contended since day one, the more Bitcoin evolves, the more it's just going to morph into the exact same kind of system that we have been using for years, which does involve central authorities.
Yeah, as things scale, they tend towards centralization. But what does this do to the Bitcoin narrative? Because right now, Bitcoin is a way to challenge the existing financial industry. It's a way to monetize clean energy, clean surplus energy. It's a way to stop war. Well, now Bitcoin is just a place to store your porn. So
This is
what?
serious stuff, dude. This is not. I don't know what you're talking about here with just porn storage and this is serious.
So this is another reason why I think it potentially makes the price go down and why you might have a fork, because the people who are really benefiting from the attempt to drive Bitcoin's price to as high a point as possible, I don't think they're going to like this functionality, because this potentially erodes the narrative. It potentially shows people, well, this is what Bitcoin's used for. It's used to store a bunch of dumb images. Why would I spend $20,000 to buy a Bitcoin, especially if I only need one Satoshi to upload something to it?
I guess we'll see. We will see what's going to happen. I think one thing we can sum this up is that the lunacy and idiocy that was the NFT market is now no longer limited to the Ethereum ecosystem and related smart contract enabled chains. It's now come to Bitcoin proper. And guess what, people? It's everything you'd hoped for and more.
It's a it's a great day for crypto.
So we'll cover more of it. So stay tuned, buckle up, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.